The paralyzed alien warrior was left to die, until a human took her and healed her. The air smelled of scorched metal and dust, and the silence that followed felt unnatural, almost cruel. Amid the ruined landscape lay Kalira, a warrior of the Zalarian race. She was strong, brave, and fierce, but the battle had left her broken. Not just broken in body, but broken in the trust she had once held for her own people. Kalira tried to move, to push herself up, but her legs refused to obey. Her powerful muscles, which had once carried her across battlefields faster than any human could run, now felt like dead weight. Pain shot through her body with every attempt, and her claws scraped uselessly against the jagged rocks. She hissed in frustration, but there was no one left to hear her. Her comrades had either fallen or fled, leaving her behind. They had called her a liability, a burden, and had vanished into the horizon. She looked up at the sky. The twin suns of Zarathis were setting, painting the clouds with orange and purple streaks. She remembered the pride she once felt for her people, for the warriors who fought alongside her. Pride had carried her through countless battles, but now pride felt like chains. She was alone, completely alone. Kalira's breathing was heavy. She tried to call for help, but her voice was hoarse, her throat dry. All around her were the remains of war, broken weapons, shattered shields, and the silence of abandonment. Every instinct in her body screamed at her to fight, to rise, but she could not. Her body betrayed her, and with it, the trust she had placed in others. Hours passed. The cold of night began to settle over Zarathis, and the alien warrior's strength waned. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, and the pain in her limbs became sharper. Kalira's eyes, once bright and unyielding, now looked weary and dull. She knew she could not survive the night alone. And yet she refused to give in entirely. She would not die so easily. Not if there was even the smallest chance to live. It was during one of these long, silent moments that she noticed a movement in the distance. At first, she thought it was her imagination, perhaps the heat waves or her own fatigue playing tricks on her. But the shadow grew larger, approaching steadily. Kalira's instincts screamed at her to hide, to prepare for an attack. Every tale she had heard of humans had painted them as fragile, unworthy of respect, yet cunning and unpredictable. Still, any movement on this desolate battlefield could not be ignored. The figure came closer, revealing itself as a human. A man, slightly taller than an average Zalarian but clearly weaker in build. He wore a uniform covered in practical pockets and straps, carrying a small pack that seemed far too light for the supplies he might need. In his hands, he held a device that glowed faintly with blue light. He did not rush toward her, nor did he show fear. He moved with purpose, careful and deliberate. Kalira watched him with suspicion. Humans were curious creatures, known to meddle in affairs they barely understood. They had a reputation for boldness, for thinking themselves clever despite their physical weakness. This human, however, seemed different. He walked slowly, deliberately, almost as if he understood her hesitation. "Easy," he said softly, his voice calm and steady. "I'm not here to hurt you." Kalira's ears twitched. The words made her uneasy. She had been betrayed by her own people, left to die, and now this human, this fragile creature, stood before her with what he called reassurance. She did not trust easily anymore. "Why should I believe you?" she hissed, her voice sharp but weak. The human crouched at a safe distance, keeping his hands visible. "Because I don't care about what you are, I care about helping, that's all." His words were simple, but there was a sincerity in them that Kalira had not expected. She studied him carefully, analyzing every movement, every expression. He did not flinch when she moved her claws slightly, nor did he rush in recklessly. He seemed patient. That was something she had not seen in a long time. "What is your name?" she asked cautiously. Her voice was hoarse, but curiosity pushed her to speak. "Elias Rowan," the human replied. "I'm a field medic and explorer, and you are?" Kalira's pride flared, even as her body trembled. "Kalira of the Zalarians," she said. Her tone was proud, almost defiant, as if to remind him that she was still a warrior, even in her current state. Elias nodded slightly. "Kalira, I think I can help you, but you need to trust me at least a little." Trust. The word made her scoff internally. She had trusted warriors who abandoned her. She had trusted leaders who deemed her useless. And now this human, so unlike anyone she had known, asked her to trust him. Still, something in his calm, steady presence made her hesitate. She had no other choice, really. Either trust him or die here alone. Slowly, with great effort, Kalira allowed herself to be moved. Elias approached carefully, his hands gentle as he assessed her injuries. He carried no heavy weapons, no armor, only a small medkit and an array of tools that looked almost magical in their simplicity. He examined her legs, her back, and the scrapes and bruises covering her arms. "You've had a rough fight," he said quietly. "But your body isn't beyond repair." Kalira tried to pull away but could not. Her body refused to cooperate, and she realized the truth. She needed help. Pride warred with necessity inside her, but necessity won. She allowed him to lift her carefully, to place her onto a stretcher-like device he had unfolded from his pack. She could feel her muscles protesting every movement, but he did not rush. Each step he took was measured, precise, and considerate. As they moved, Kalira studied him. Humans were strange creatures. They were not strong like Zalarians, not fast, not built for war, yet they survived. They endured. They thought, they planned, and they never gave up. There was something about this human, his determination, his calmness, his ingenuity, that sparked a small flicker of hope in her heart. They reached a small shuttle parked nearby, a compact craft that looked almost fragile compared to her massive warship. Yet it had lights, warmth, and safety. Elias carefully helped her aboard and secured her to a seat designed for her body. He did not speak much, letting his actions show care rather than empty words. For the first time in hours, Kalira felt a small sense of relief. She was not abandoned, not entirely, not yet. "Rest now," Elias said softly. "We'll get you through this." Rest. It was a foreign concept to her. She had been trained to fight, to endure, to survive through strength alone. But as exhaustion overcame her, she allowed herself to close her eyes. The pain was still there, sharp and insistent, but the knowledge that she was not completely alone eased it slightly. As the shuttle lifted off, leaving the battlefield behind, Kalira watched the ruins shrink beneath them. The twin suns had disappeared beyond the horizon, and the stars of Zarathis sparkled above like distant beacons of hope. She did not yet know if she could trust this human fully, or if she would ever forgive those who had left her behind. But for the first time, she dared to imagine a future beyond the battlefield, a future where she might stand again, not alone, but with someone who saw her not as a liability, but as a life worth saving. Elias glanced at her as he adjusted the controls. "We'll get through this, Kalira, one step at a time." And for the first time since the battle began, Kalira allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, survival was possible. The stars stretched endlessly outside the shuttle's window, and Kalira felt a flicker of determination ignite inside her. She was not defeated yet, not by her people, not by the battlefield, not by fate. There was a long road ahead, and she would walk it, pain, pride, and all, with this strange, remarkable human who had chosen to save her. The shuttle hummed steadily as it cut through the darkness of space. For Kalira, the night of abandonment was over. A new chapter had begun. The shuttle glided silently through the cold expanse of space, leaving the battlefield far behind. Inside, the air was calm, warmed by the small heaters and softly lit by the ship's consoles. Kalira lay reclined in the medical seat, her body aching, her muscles stiff and uncooperative. Her claws tapped lightly against the metal floor with a restless rhythm, a sign of her frustration. Elias sat nearby, quietly organizing his medical tools. Each instrument had a purpose, from scanning wounds to repairing damaged nerves. He had been through battles and missions like this before, but nothing prepared him for caring for a Zalarian warrior. Their biology was strong, complicated, and resilient, but delicate when injured in the wrong way. He adjusted his portable medkit, his expression calm but focused. "Your legs, they're not completely paralyzed," he said softly, checking the glowing readouts on his scanner. "It's mainly nerve compression and trauma. We can fix that, but it will take time and effort." Kalira's tail flicked with impatience. "Effort I may not have. I am a warrior human. I am trained to survive. But if I cannot move, I am useless." Her voice was sharp, but it carried the fatigue of someone who had been betrayed and abandoned. Elias smiled gently. "Strength isn't just about fighting, Kalira, and survival isn't always about pride or speed. Sometimes it's about learning to trust, learning to heal, and learning to adapt. You're not useless, you just need the right help." Kalira blinked, unsure what to make of this. She had grown up in a culture where weakness was punished, where only the strong survived. Humans were different. They did not rely solely on physical strength. They relied on cleverness, patience, and persistence. Even in her current state, she could see it. Elias was not a soldier, not a warrior, yet he moved with confidence and purpose. "Then you claim you can help me?" she asked cautiously, her voice almost whispering. I can, he said simply. But I need you to cooperate. I can't do this alone. Healing isn't just about medicine. It's about movement, rehabilitation, and patience. You'll need to push yourself, but I'll be with you every step. Kalira's ears twitched. She had no choice. She could remain paralyzed, left to decay, or she could allow this human to guide her. Slowly, she nodded. Very well, show me your way. Elias began with a careful examination. He traced the lines of her muscles and joints, using gentle vibrations and scanning pulses. Kalira's body was tense, every fiber ready to lash out in defense, but she allowed him to continue. His touch was firm yet gentle, precise as if he understood her in ways her own people never had. Hours passed in silence, broken only by the soft hum of the shuttle's engines and the occasional beep of his medical instruments. Elias worked methodically, repairing damaged tissues and stimulating nerve pathways with small electrical pulses. Kalira clenched her teeth against the discomfort, every twitch and spark sending sharp sensations through her body. Yet with every passing moment, she began to feel a tiny shift, muscles responding, nerves awakening, hope stirring. When he finished the first round of treatment, Elias helped her sit upright. It was a small movement, only a few degrees, but it brought Kalira a sense of achievement she had not felt in hours. She looked at him, eyes wide with cautious curiosity. You've done something, she said. I can feel it. My legs, they are listening again. Elias nodded, a small smile forming. Exactly, but this is just the beginning. You'll need to practice. Movement, balance, coordination. Your body remembers how to fight, but your nerves need a little guidance to catch up. Are you ready? Kalira's pride flared. I am always ready for challenge. She tried to stand, leaning heavily on the support harness he had rigged for her. Pain shot through her legs, but she did not scream. Instead, she gritted her teeth and pushed against it. With Elias' careful guidance, she managed to shift her weight from one leg to another. Her steps were wobbly, uncertain, but she was moving. You're stronger than you think, Elias said softly, and stronger than you know. You just need to believe it yourself. Kalira's ears flicked at his words. Belief was not something her people encouraged. They valued action over thought. But as she took another tentative step, she realized there was truth in it. Strength was not only in the muscles, it was in determination, in perseverance, and in the courage to rely on someone else. The next few days passed in a careful rhythm. Kalira practiced walking, supported by Elias' hands and the harness he had constructed. She stretched and flexed, each small victory building her confidence. Elias encouraged her constantly, praising her progress and gently correcting her movements. It was not easy. Some days she would fall back in frustration, her pride warring with her physical limitations. But Elias never scolded, never criticized. He simply helped her rise again, patiently guiding her body and mind. Kalira began to notice a strange feeling, trust. Not blind trust, not the kind her people demanded, but a careful, deliberate trust. She allowed herself to depend on Elias, and in return he treated her as an equal, not a burden. Between exercises, they shared quiet moments. Kalira observed humans more closely than ever before. Their ways were simple but effective. They did not rely solely on strength or aggression. They thought, they experimented, and they learned from mistakes. She watched him fix small problems on the shuttle with nothing more than ingenuity and tools, and she began to admire the human capacity for creativity. Your people fight with honor and strength, Elias said one evening as he adjusted her harness for a stretching session. But sometimes strength alone isn't enough. You need strategy, patience, and adaptability. That's how humans survive and thrive. Kalira considered his words. She had always believed in her people's methods, their traditions. Yet in this quiet shuttle far from war, she could see another way, a way that did not rely solely on brute force, but on cleverness, compassion, and perseverance. The exercises grew more challenging as her strength returned. She learned to balance on one leg, to shift her weight quickly, to bend and stretch without tipping over. Elias introduced small tools, resistance bands, vibration plates, and balance platforms to accelerate her rehabilitation. At first, she resisted, frustrated by the unfamiliar methods. But as she improved, she began to enjoy the process, even laughing quietly when she stumbled. Not bad for a first try, Elias said, smiling. And that's coming from someone who knows what warriors are capable of. Kalira's tail twitched, almost in amusement. She had not heard praise from anyone who truly cared about her progress before. Her people measured worth in battle victories and strength alone. This human measured worth in effort, persistence, and growth. Evenings were spent in conversation. Ilias shared stories of Earth, of humans exploring the stars, and of the countless ways they had survived against odds that seemed impossible. Kalira listened intently, fascinated by their resourcefulness and courage. She began to understand why humans were underestimated by many species. They relied on qualities others overlooked: intelligence, compassion, and persistence. One evening, as the shuttle drifted near a luminous nebula, Kalira attempted a small run across the cabin. Her legs shook and her body protested, but she managed it. She laughed, a sound raw, unrestrained, and surprisingly human. "You're improving faster than I expected," Ilias said, watching her carefully. "Your body remembers what it means to fight. Now your mind and spirit are catching up too." Kalira's ears twitched. She realized that the healing was not only physical. For the first time since the battle, she felt a spark of hope, a feeling she had buried beneath anger and betrayal. She was not weak. She was not abandoned. She was being rebuilt, not by her own kind, but by this human who refused to give up on her. Days turned into a week, and Kalira's progress amazed even herself. She could now walk unaided, though still with some wobble. She could lift objects again, stretch fully, and balance on her claws with confidence. Ilias introduced sparring drills, careful exercises to rebuild her combat reflexes without risking injury. Kalira relished the challenge, her warrior spirit reigniting. Yet there was more to learn. Ilias emphasized that true healing was not only physical, it was mental, emotional, and strategic. He taught her problem-solving exercises, scenarios to think through challenges logically, and ways to anticipate danger without relying solely on strength. Kalira discovered that humans thought in ways her people did not. They valued creativity over tradition, flexibility over rigidity, and collaboration over solitary pride. One night, as Kalira rested and watched the stars, she realized something remarkable. She trusted Ilias completely. She had begun to see humanity in a new light, not as fragile or inferior, but as strong in ways her people could not comprehend. And in that trust, she found a new kind of strength. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice almost a whisper in the quiet cabin. Ilias smiled without turning from his work. "No need. You did all the hard work yourself. I just showed you the way." Kalira closed her eyes, letting the shuttle's gentle hum lull her into a rare rest. She had survived the battlefield, survived abandonment, and now she was learning to survive herself, stronger, wiser, and with a new understanding of the power of trust. And though the road ahead was long, she knew one thing for certain. She would walk it step by step with Ilias by her side. Kalira stretched, her muscles strong and steady now, her movements confident. The shuttle hummed softly beneath her feet as it traveled through the quiet darkness of space. It had been several weeks since Ilias had found her on the battlefield, and in that time she had grown stronger, physically, mentally, and emotionally. But healing her body was only the beginning. There was still much to learn about life beyond battle, about trust, and about a species she had long underestimated. Ilias moved about the cabin, making adjustments to the shuttle systems. His movements were easy, efficient, and precise. Watching him, Kalira could not help but be impressed. Humans were fragile compared to Zalarian warriors, yet they were clever, adaptable, and capable of handling challenges in ways her people could not even imagine. "You have improved remarkably," Ilias said, glancing at her with a small smile. "Your body is strong, your reflexes are sharp, and your mind, well, your mind is ready to learn something new." Kalira raised an eyebrow, her tail flicking in curiosity. "And what is it that you intend to teach me now, human?" "Humanity," Ilias replied simply. "Not just surviving, not just fighting, but how we think, how we solve problems, how we work together. If you want to thrive beyond the battlefield, you need more than strength." Kalira considered his words. Strength had always been her measure of worth. Victory in battle, the ability to crush enemies, to survive, that had been all she knew. But now she had begun to see that there was more to life than power. There was intelligence, creativity, and trust. Trust in others, trust in yourself, trust in choices that were not just about fighting. Over the next few days, Ilias introduced Kalira to the ways humans approached challenges. He created small scenarios, puzzles, and tasks that required more than brute force. One exercise involved navigating a complex zero-gravity obstacle course in the shuttle's cargo bay. At first, Kalira relied on her instincts, leaping, clawing, and relying on raw strength. But she quickly discovered that pure power was not enough. You need to think ahead, Elias explained as she struggled to grasp a floating platform. Plan your movements, anticipate changes, and don't just react, adapt. Kalira's ears twitched. Planning ahead had always been secondary to action in her culture. Quick decisions, bold moves, and strength determined victory. But as she attempted the course again, she began to understand. By observing the environment, predicting obstacles, and using her strength wisely, she could move faster and more efficiently. Days turned into weeks, and Kalira grew adept at solving the exercises. Each success brought a small thrill of accomplishment, a spark of confidence that had little to do with battle and everything to do with intelligence and adaptability. She began to see the appeal of human methods. Strength alone could not ensure survival in all situations, but combined with thinking, creativity, and collaboration, it became far more powerful. Evenings were spent differently. The shuttle's small cabin became a place for conversation, a quiet space where stories were shared. Elias told her about Earth, about humans exploring the stars, about their achievements, their mistakes, and the lessons they had learned. Kalira listened with growing interest. These humans, she realized, had faced challenges far greater than the small battles she had known. They had survived disasters, adapted to harsh planets, and created incredible machines with nothing but their minds and their hands. Your people think that strength is everything, Elias said one evening as they watched the stars shift outside the viewport. But there are many kinds of strength. Strength of will, strength of mind, strength of compassion. Humans may not be the strongest physically, but we survive because we are persistent, creative, and willing to work together. Kalira's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Compassion, she had learned, was rare among warriors. She had seen pity mistaken for weakness, kindness misinterpreted as cowardice. Yet this human showed that caring for others, helping them grow, and trusting them could create an even greater power, one that combined with physical ability. She could see now why humans endured while others fell. In the following days, Kalira practiced her new skills in tandem with physical training. Elias taught her how to analyze situations, identify problems, and develop strategies before acting. He set up simulations in which she had to lead a team of holographic units, guiding them to accomplish objectives without brute force. At first, Kalira struggled, often relying on instinct and expecting the units to follow her commands immediately. But gradually she learned patience, observation, and adaptability. "You are learning fast," Elias said with encouragement. "The key is understanding yourself and others. Not everything can be solved with strength." Kalira's tail twitched. She had never thought much about understanding others, only defeating them. But now she realized that empathy, patience, and insight could be as powerful as her claws or her speed. Humans had taught her that. One day, as they traveled near a cluster of small, unexplored planets, Elias proposed a new exercise. "We're going to explore one of these worlds," he explained. "It will be uninhabited, but it will test your observation, creativity, and ability to adapt to a new environment. Think of it as a real-world exercise for everything we've discussed." Kalira's eyes sparkled with excitement. Exploration was different from battle. It required curiosity, observation, and careful thinking. Her heart raced at the idea. Finally, a challenge where her mind would be as important as her body. The shuttle descended into the atmosphere of a small green planet, its surface covered in forests, rivers, and mountains. The air was breathable, the gravity slightly lighter than Zaratha's, and the temperature pleasant. Elias and Kalira stepped onto the surface, carrying light equipment and scanning devices. "Your first task," Elias said, "is to map this area and identify any potential hazards or resources. Do it carefully. Observe, analyze, and record. Use what you've learned." Kalira moved carefully through the terrain, her steps deliberate. She observed the plants, the patterns of water flow, the sounds of animals in the distance. Her Zalarian instincts told her to react quickly, to push forward with speed, but she forced herself to pause, observe, and think. She noted the stability of the ground, the location of obstacles, and the best routes for travel. Each decision was thoughtful, precise, and controlled. Elias watched her progress, impressed. Kalira's natural instincts combined with the lessons he had taught her created a powerful synergy. She was no longer relying solely on strength. Her mind guided her actions, making her movements smarter and more efficient. After hours of careful exploration, Kalira returned to the shuttle, proud of her observations and notes. "The terrain is mostly stable," she reported. "Rivers are shallow near the edges, and there are several elevated paths suitable for rapid movement." "No immediate dangers detected," Elias nodded. "Excellent. You've applied everything we've discussed: observation, strategy, and foresight. That's exactly the kind of thinking that will keep you alive beyond the battlefield." Kalira felt a thrill of accomplishment. For the first time, she realized that her strength, combined with intelligence and patience, created something far greater than she had known. Humans had shown her a different kind of power, one that allowed her to survive and thrive without relying solely on combat. As the sun began to set on the small planet, casting golden light across the landscape, Kalira and Elias set up a temporary camp. They shared a simple meal, and for a moment, Kalira allowed herself to relax completely. She had learned so much in a short time: to trust, to observe, to plan, to think ahead, and to appreciate the value of patience and insight. Elias sat across from her, watching the stars slowly appear in the sky. "You've come a long way," he said quietly. "Not just in strength, but in understanding. You see the value in things beyond combat. That's rare, Kalira. Few warriors ever learn that lesson." Kalira's tail flicked thoughtfully. "It is different from everything I have known, yet I see now that there is power in this way. Power in thought and understanding and cooperation." Elias smiled. "Exactly. Strength alone is not enough. It's what you do with it, how you think, and how you work with others that defines true capability." Kalira nodded slowly, a feeling of respect growing in her chest, not just for Elias, but for humans in general. They were not weak. They were strong in ways her people could not understand, and she had been fortunate to experience it firsthand. That night, as the stars sparkled above and the planet's gentle winds whispered through the trees, Kalira reflected on her journey. She had been abandoned, paralyzed, and left to die, but she had been given a second chance. She had been shown that strength was not only measured in battle victories, but in thought, perseverance, and trust. And though she did not yet know what challenges awaited them in the vastness of space, Kalira felt ready. With Elias by her side, she could face anything, not as a lone warrior, but as a being who had learned the value of humanity, the power of trust, and the strength of a mind that could think beyond the battlefield. For the first time in her life, Kalira felt truly alive, not just as a warrior, but as a being capable of learning, growing, and thriving. And she knew, deep within her, that she had only just begun to understand what it meant to be strong. The shuttle waited nearby, humming softly, a vessel of safety, knowledge, and endless possibilities. And Kalira knew that the journey ahead would be one of discovery, challenge, and wonder. She was no longer just a survivor. She was learning to be more, stronger, wiser, and more capable than she had ever imagined. The shuttle glided silently through the void of space, carrying Kalira and Elias toward the next uncharted sector. Kalira's body had regained almost full strength, her muscles and reflexes sharp and precise. Her mind was clearer than ever before, shaped by lessons in observation, strategy, and trust. She no longer saw herself merely as a warrior. She saw the power of intelligence and collaboration, the strength in patience and careful planning. Yet, despite her progress, a shadow lingered in her mind. Her people, the Zalarians, had abandoned her. She had been left to die on the battlefield, paralyzed and defenseless. The betrayal still burned like fire in her chest, though now tempered by the lessons she had learned. She was stronger and wiser, but part of her wondered, what would happen if she encountered her own people again? Would they recognize her? Would they respect her strength, or continue to see her as a failure? Her questions were answered sooner than she expected. Sensors on the shuttle picked up a signal from a nearby sector, a ship moving with precision and authority. Elias scanned the readings carefully. "It's a Xylarian vessel," he said quietly, "and it's heading directly toward us." Kalira's ears flattened. Her heart pounded, a mixture of anger, fear, and curiosity. "They've found me," she muttered. "They come to reclaim or to punish, I do not know which." Elias placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "Whatever happens, remember what you've learned: strength is not only physical. You have your mind, your judgment, and your experience now. Trust yourself and trust me." Kalira took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his words. She had survived before, relying only on strength and pride. This time she had something more: guidance, strategy, and the knowledge that trust could be a source of power rather than weakness. The Zalarian ship approached, a sleek and imposing craft, black with silver accents. Its weapons were retracted, but its size alone radiated authority. A transmission beeped through the shuttle's communication system, and Kalira's ears twitched at the familiar voice. "Kalira of the Zalarians," the voice called, cold and formal. "You have abandoned your duty and your honor. Return to the ship immediately. Compliance is required." Kalira's tail lashed behind her, a flicker of anger flashing in her eyes. "They do not understand," she said under her breath. "They see only what they want. They see failure, not growth." Elias studied the readings carefully. "They may not intend harm yet, but we cannot take chances. You need to decide how to respond." Kalira straightened, feeling the confidence in her limbs and mind. She had been abandoned once. She would not be trapped again by their rules, their pride, or their narrow thinking. "We do not return," she said firmly. "I will not bow to their judgment, not now, not ever." The Zalarian ship's weapons began to extend slowly, a show of force. Kalira's first instinct was to prepare for combat, to strike and prove her strength. But then she remembered Elias' lessons. Strength alone is not enough. Observation, strategy, and trust mattered. She glanced at him, silently asking for guidance. Elias nodded slightly. "We do this smart. We avoid unnecessary conflict, but we show them they cannot control you. You are capable. Let them see it without violence." Kalira took a deep breath, centering herself. Using the shuttle's comm system, she sent a message. "I am not returning. I have chosen my path. I am stronger than your judgment, and I make my own decisions." The Zalarian voice crackled with disbelief. "You dare defy the council? You are dishonored, unfit to represent our people." Kalira's ears twitched. She had once feared this reaction, but now she was calm. "I am not here to represent anyone but myself. I have learned to survive, to adapt, and to grow. You may not understand me yet, but I am no longer the one you left behind." The Zalarian captain's voice hesitated. There was a pause, as if uncertainty had crept into their rigid thinking. Elias smiled subtly, understanding the effect Kalira's words had. "Your words carry weight," he said quietly. "Now show them your actions." Kalira activated the shuttle's defensive systems, not in aggression but in readiness. Shields hummed softly around the craft, lights blinking as the ship became a fortress of safety. The Zalarians could see that she was capable, prepared, and unafraid. Strength paired with intelligence, strategy, and confidence. The Zalarian ship paused, their weapons still extended, but no further aggression followed. They communicated again, this time more cautiously. "You have grown beyond our expectations. Yet your actions defy the council. Return or face consequences." Kalira's tail flicked in thought. Consequences no longer held the same power over her. She had been left to die once and had survived. She had learned the value of thought, patience, and collaboration. She would not bow to fear. "I will not return," she repeated. "I choose my path and I will continue forward. You may leave if you cannot accept it." The Zalarians hesitated, unsure how to respond to a warrior who had once been weak in their eyes but now radiated strength in body, mind, and spirit. After several tense minutes, the ship slowly altered course, moving away from the shuttle. Kalira exhaled slowly, relief mingled with pride. She had not fought with weapons, yet she had won. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder, smiling. "You did it. You faced them without violence, and you proved yourself. That is strength the Zalarians may never understand fully, but they will respect it now." Kalira's ears flicked thoughtfully. "Respect, perhaps, but understanding that is beyond them, and yet I feel no anger now, only clarity." For the first time, she realized something profound. Strength was more than the ability to strike or resist. It was courage, the courage to act wisely, to protect oneself, and to follow one's own path. She had survived betrayal, paralysis, and doubt. Now she had faced her own people and proven that true strength combined body, mind, and spirit. In the days that followed, Kalira reflected on her journey. She practiced her combat skills, yes, but she also trained her mind, tested her observations, and honed her problem-solving abilities. Every day was a lesson, not only in survival, but in understanding the vastness of life beyond the battlefield. Elias continued to guide her, offering advice, encouragement, and challenges that strengthened her in ways she had never imagined. One evening, as they drifted near a star system rich with planets, Kalira observed the stars and planets passing below. I see now, she said quietly. That strength is not just about defeating others. It is about surviving, learning, and growing. It is about courage, trust, and understanding. My people, they may never fully see this, but I do. Elias smiled. Exactly. That is what makes you truly strong, and it is what will carry you forward no matter what comes next. Kalira nodded, her confidence unwavering. The encounter with her people had been a test, not of her body, but of her spirit. She had faced fear, betrayal, and expectation, and she had chosen her own path. That choice, she realized, was more powerful than any weapon she had ever wielded. The shuttle glided onward, carrying them into the unknown. Kalira felt a sense of freedom she had never known, a freedom born of choice, courage, and trust. She had been abandoned once, healed, taught, and guided by a human who saw her worth when her own people did not. And now she faced the galaxy with strength renewed in every way, physical, mental, and moral. No longer was she just a survivor of the battlefield. She was a warrior of thought, strategy, and trust. She had learned the value of patience, the power of collaboration, and the importance of forging one's own path. Her people had tested her, and she had risen, not with anger, not with hatred, but with wisdom, courage, and confidence. Elias glanced at her, noting the calm determination in her eyes. "Ready for the next adventure?" he asked lightly. Kalira's tail flicked, a small smile on her lips. "Yes," she replied. "I am ready for anything. The galaxy is vast, and I intend to explore it, not as someone abandoned, but as someone who has grown stronger in every way." And so, they continued, moving forward together. The stars stretched endlessly before them, full of challenges, discoveries, and opportunities. Kalira had faced the ultimate test of trust and courage, and she had passed. She had learned that true strength was not only measured in muscle or claw, but in the courage to act wisely, to think clearly, and to trust in those who had earned it. The galaxy awaited, and Kalira was ready. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the shuttle's window, vast and bright against the blackness of space. Kalira stood at the edge of the observation deck, her gaze fixed on the distant nebulae, feeling the hum of the ship beneath her feet. It had been weeks since she had faced her own people and proven her strength, not with violence, but with wisdom, strategy, and courage. She had grown stronger, wiser, and more capable than she had ever imagined. Elias joined her quietly, carrying 2 cups of nutrient drink. He handed one to her, smiling softly. "Thinking again?" he asked. Kalira accepted the drink, letting her tail brush against the smooth metal floor. "Yes," she replied. "I am thinking about the future, about what we can do." Elias leaned beside her, looking at the stars. "There's a lot we can do. The galaxy is full of worlds to explore, beings to meet, and challenges to face. And you, well, you've proven you can handle more than most." Kalira smiled faintly, her ears flicking. She remembered the battlefield on Zarathis, the cold night when she had been left behind, and the human who had saved her life. She had gone from being paralyzed, abandoned, and hopeless to being strong, confident, and capable. Elias had not just healed her body, he had taught her to think, to trust, and to grow. He had shown her that strength was more than muscle, it was wisdom, strategy, and courage. "Elias," she said quietly, "I have learned much from you. You have shown me the value of trust, patience, and thought. My people, they may never understand, but I do, and I wish to share this understanding with others. I do not want anyone else to feel abandoned or weak. I want to help." Elias smiled, impressed by the clarity and conviction in her voice. "That's exactly what makes humans, well, humans. We don't just survive. We try to help, to create, to inspire. And now you've become part of that." Kalira nodded. "Then we must continue forward. There is much to learn and much to teach." The days that followed were filled with exploration, discovery, and teamwork. Kalira had fully regained her mobility, her agility, and her combat reflexes, but she no longer relied on strength alone. She analyzed environments carefully, anticipated challenges, and worked alongside Elias to solve problems. Their partnership became seamless, each complementing the other. Kalira brought strength, courage, and tactical skill. Elias brought ingenuity, strategy, and creativity. Together, they were unstoppable, not because they were perfect, but because they worked as a team. Their first mission after leaving the Zalarian sector was to a small, uncharted planet rich in resources. The planet was lush with green forests, tall mountains, and sparkling rivers. As they approached the surface, Kalira studied the terrain carefully. "The rivers are shallow near the edges," she observed. "The trees are widely spaced, which allows for fast movement. No immediate hazards visible. Elias nodded. Good observation. Let's land and gather data. I want a detailed survey of this planet, flora, fauna, and possible resources. This will test your skills in exploration and analysis. Kalira smiled faintly. I am ready. They landed near a river that sparkled under the planet's twin suns. Kalira moved swiftly, scanning plants and wildlife with her enhanced senses. She noted the shapes of leaves, the patterns of animal tracks, and the stability of the terrain. Elias used his equipment to record the data, occasionally offering suggestions or asking her observations. See that cluster of rocks near the river? He asked. There's a hidden path behind them. It could be dangerous if we're not careful. Kalira nodded. I see it. We will approach cautiously and use the natural cover to move undetected. Strategy before action. Together, they navigated the planet's terrain, testing their skills and learning from one another. Kalira discovered that intelligence and observation often mattered more than strength. She grew more confident in her ability to adapt, to anticipate danger, and to make wise decisions. During one exploration, they encountered a group of native creatures, tall, graceful beings with shimmering skin that reflected the sunlight. The creatures observed them cautiously, communicating with soft sounds and gestures. Kalira instinctively stepped forward, claws raised, but then remembered Elias' lessons. Strength was not the first tool to use, trust and observation were. Elias motioned her to pause. Observe first, see how they behave, try communication before confrontation. Kalira lowered her claws and studied the creatures. She noticed patterns in their movements, subtle signs of emotion, and ways they interacted. Following Elias' guidance, she attempted simple gestures of peace. The creatures responded cautiously but positively, allowing them to approach closer. For the first time, Kalira realized the true meaning of Elias' teaching. Strength alone could not build alliances, solve problems, or create understanding. Thought, patience, and empathy could. She smiled faintly at the creatures, feeling a connection she had never known before. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, Kalira and Elias set up a temporary camp. They shared a simple meal, discussing the day's findings and planning for tomorrow. Kalira reflected on how much she had changed since that fateful day on Zarathis. She had been abandoned, paralyzed, and left to die. Now she was strong, capable, and full of purpose. Elias watched her, sensing the shift in her spirit. You've come a long way, he said quietly. Not just in strength, but in understanding, trust, and courage. You're no longer just a survivor, you're a leader, a warrior of thought and action. Kalira's tail flicked thoughtfully. I understand now that strength is not enough. Wisdom, observation, and cooperation are just as important. And now I wish to use all that I have learned to help others, to explore and to grow. Elias smiled, nodding. Then we'll do it together. There's a galaxy full of challenges and discoveries waiting for us, and I can think of no one better to explore it with than you. Days turned into weeks, and their exploration continued. Kalira became a skilled navigator, strategist, and diplomat. She learned to communicate with alien species, solve environmental challenges, and adapt to unpredictable situations. Her respect for humanity grew, as she saw firsthand the ingenuity, creativity, and persistence that allowed humans to survive and thrive in the galaxy. One day, while mapping a dense forest on a new planet, they discovered ruins of an ancient civilization. Towering stone structures covered in strange symbols and glowing plants surrounded them. Kalira examined the ruins carefully, her mind working to understand the architecture, the patterns, and the possible history of the civilization. These ruins are remarkable, Elias said, scanning the area. They tell a story of knowledge, art, and understanding. A civilization that valued more than strength, they valued wisdom. Kalira nodded. They remind me of what we have learned together. Strength must be paired with knowledge, observation, and understanding. That is how civilizations endure, and that is how individuals grow. They spent days studying the ruins, recording data, and piecing together the history of the civilization. Kalira applied all her training, strength, observation, and strategic thinking, to navigate traps, analyze inscriptions, and interact with delicate structures without causing damage. Elias marveled at her skill, noting how far she had come from the warrior abandoned on a battlefield. As they prepared to leave, Kalira turned to Elias. I realize now that my journey has not only been about survival, it has been about growth, understanding, and partnership. I have learned that true strength comes from more than physical ability. It comes from thought, trust, and courage. Elias smiled warmly. And you've shown that. Humanity may not be perfect, but we try, and together we can achieve great things. You've learned our ways, and now you teach others by example. That is the true measure of your strength. Kalira felt a deep sense of purpose. She had been paralyzed and abandoned, but she had grown beyond her former limits. She had learned to trust, to think, and to act wisely. She had discovered that strength alone was not enough, and that true power came from combining physical ability with intellect, courage, and empathy. As the shuttle lifted from the forest planet, Kalira looked out at the stars, her heart filled with determination. She was no longer a warrior abandoned and broken. She was a being capable of great deeds, a student of humanity, and a partner to Elias. Together they would explore the galaxy, learn from it, and leave their mark, not through conquest, but through understanding, courage, and collaboration. The universe stretched endlessly before them, full of mysteries to solve, worlds to explore, and lives to touch. Kalira felt ready for it all. She had been healed, taught, and guided. She had learned the value of trust, patience, observation, and wisdom, and she knew that wherever the stars led, she would face the journey with courage, strength, and the lessons of humanity guiding her. Elias turned to her with a grin. Ready for the next adventure? Kalira's tail swished with quiet excitement. Yes, she said firmly. I am ready. The galaxy awaits, and I intend to face it fully, strong, wise, and unafraid. Together they soared through space, a human and a Zalarian warrior united not by blood or duty, but by trust, understanding, and the shared desire to explore, learn, and grow. Kalira had been abandoned once, but she had risen stronger than ever before, a living testament to the power of guidance, partnership, and the unique strength of humanity. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, and Kalira knew that her journey had only just begun.